Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Review Committee. Those of you that, in fact, most of you have taken your jackets off, so if you're more comfortable with no jacket, please take it off. Should we be required to evacuate the building, would you please leave the building via the rear doors to the hall and then turn right, go through the 2 sets of double doors to the car park, which is our assembly point. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the building until given permission to do so by council staff. Please note that the meeting will be audio recorded, and please would you switch off mobiles or turn them to silent. One additional announcement is that you've got the microphones in front of you, so when you're if you pass the microphone to another member, please would you use the antibacterial wipes that are placed on the desks there. Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 1 is apologies for absence, and apologies have been received from Councillor Joe McPherson. Agenda item 2, substitute members. Councillor June Lumley is substituting for Councillor Joe McPherson. Agenda item number 3, non-members attending. We've got Councillor Cheryl Rowe, Councillor Arthur Williams and Councillor Simon Wootton attending. Moving on to agenda item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of April 2021. Are these minutes agreed, members? Thank you. Agenda item 5, to receive declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, members? There are none. None declared. Thank you. Agenda item 6 is the audit and review of the Review Committee, and Angela Law will present the officer's report. Angela.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny has been commissioned to review the Council's scrutiny function and to identify areas for improvement. This report sets out the process of the Centre of Governance and Scrutiny's audit and review of the Review Committee following the results of the LGA peer review conducted in 2019. The 2019 peer review highlighted the Council's scrutiny function was a cause for concern which needed to be strengthened. The peer review proposed that the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny undertake the work with Rochester District Council to work with members and officers to ensure that its overview and scrutiny function is working effectively and to develop actions to help the function improve. The audit and review of the Review Committee has been postponed up until this period due to the impact and repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic, which hit shortly after the completion of the peer review. This audit and review is based on a tried and tested methodology utilised by the Centre of Governance and Scrutiny since 2003 and is built around the content of the 2019 statutory scrutiny guidance which local authorities must have regard to, and the Good Scrutiny Guide published by the Centre in 2019. Paragraph 4 refers to where the Centre of Governance and Scrutiny have identified certain areas of improvement needed following the peer review, and how the Centre of Governance and Scrutiny will gather evidence through the 4 different methods as listed in 4.2. Once all the evidence has been gathered, they will put forward an action plan for improvements which is deliverable and focus on ensuring that scrutiny within the Council is working effectively. It is anticipated that this work will be completed by late autumn with the report presented to the Review Committee in November of this year and will in turn make recommendations to full Council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Angela. Do any members have any questions on the report? Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I question on the report, I think I was loud enough. Okay?
Yeah.
Before I comment on the report, which I would like to do, possibly don't know me.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Mrs Mason. Very good idea, yes. Who will start with? Councillor Myers?
Yeah, my name is Gary Myers. I'm ward is Foulness and Awakenings.
Hi, I'm Shaw, Rotherham Road. I'm the Edison Doctor.
Really very proud for you. Phil Shaw, Hawthorne. Ray Heaton, Oxford West Ward. Ian Foster, Roche North and Rural Ward.
Christy Mason, Rochester District Residents. Hawthorne West.
James People, Downmore Ward.
Michael Wilkinson, Independent Wigan Ward. Roger Constable, Oxford Ashton Ward.
Thanks for that suggestion, Councillor Mrs Mason. I've spent all day looking at everyone's photographs on the website, and some of you don't look, you look much better in the flesh, I would say. Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson.
Sorry, Chair.
Oh, sorry, sorry, your second point.
I would just like to comment on the report. I mean, it has been some time coming, but I think that's understandable in the circumstances. I would just say that I'd like to see the report be positive and looking forward, not backwards, because the historic problems that we've had are likely not to be the same. So we have a new committee with a new chairman, and perhaps this new committee can demonstrate that Rochester District Council Overview and Scrutiny Committee is not only improving, but is good. And it's possible, and I remain very optimistic, that once this review has been done, that hopefully we will come up with a very small action plan. I wouldn't be optimistic enough to say no actions, because I'm sure we will, but none of us are perfect. But I think we need to have a positive spin on this, and to take it with as constructive criticism, and it should be very helpful to all members. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. I echo the comments from Councillor Mason. The point I was going to make was, can I just ask, is this review similar to the peer review in that it's advisory, or is this something that will mandate the council to take on the actions that it recommends, if that makes sense?
Councillor Wilkinson, it's not similar to the peer review. They will come in and they will give us advice and guidance and make recommendations. Whether those recommendations are to be followed, that's to be discussed by this committee. Some of you might not agree with the action plan they put forward or the improvement, but that, I think it's something to be be seen as to what they would put forward. It's hard to say at this present time, but it's not mandatory. It is a matter for this council.
Chairman, if I may ask a further question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Angela. One further question then. Is this, forgive me for asking, because I mean I welcome this, but I don't know the history behind it. Is this something that we have asked for, or is this something that has happened as a result of a peer review, that we've been told this is what's going to happen to us?
Chairman, it's partly because of the peer review and also as the monitoring officer responsible for governance, we've not had a audit since 2004. So I think it's about time to ensure, yes.
No, that's fine, thank you. You've asked my question. I mean, I welcome this. I just wanted to know the history behind it. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dray?
Let's stay standing.
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome this initiative, and I hope that it will allow us to be much more effective, especially in our role as scrutineers. I look forward to receiving the action plan for improvements. But one thing I'd like to see based on any recommendations that come out of the action plan, not only for members of this committee, but also for all other councillors. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dray. That's a very good suggestion. Thank you. Could I ask one question, actually?
Yeah, of course.
Which is that will we, rather than wait till the end of the report and have it formally handed over, will they be giving us emerging findings so that we can start to make improvements straight away?
Yes, that's something you can put forward to the caseworkers. As chairman, you can make that suggestion. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Councillor
you,
Foster.
Chairman. Just building on Councillor Wilkinson's comments, just really for my education, this Centre for Governance and Scrutiny, is that a governmental body or is it a voluntary body, or how is it qualified to make these judgments upon us?
It's actually an independent national charity founded by the Local Government Association, but they are the leading body in promoting governance and scrutiny. They have a strong track record and they help ministers draft policy in governance and scrutiny. So they do work up and down the country and with various organisations.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could just make a point that Councillor Dray raised. Excuse me, can you use the mic? I can't hear you, sorry. I'll wait for it. Thank you. I'll ask that again. If I could, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could just come back on the point that Councillor Dray made about training. We normally have a review training session. I don't recall seeing it on the training brochure. Forgive me if I'm wrong, please educate me, but I don't recall seeing it. And I do think, especially with so many new members, that should be done at an earlier rather than a later date. So perhaps the officers can tell us if that has been arranged or not.
Your comments noted, Councillor Mrs Mason. I'll make sure of that. But training is part of the remit that I've asked the Centre of Governance and Scrutiny to look at as well, as to what training needs members will need.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members, there is one recommendation set out at paragraph 9.1 on page 6.3 of the report, and that is to note the process for undertaking the audit and review of the operation of the review committee. Is that noted, members? Thank you. Moving on to item 7, the key decisions document. I would just make the point that none of these decisions have yet been taken. And what I propose to do, if you'll indulge me, is just to go through page by page and ask if anyone has any questions or any observations on any of the items. So if we look at page 2 of item 8, we've got 2 key decisions: the Environmental Health Service Plan 2020 to 21 and the Modern Slavery Act 2015. Does anyone wish to comment or make observations? Thank you. Moving on to page 3, we've got 3 decisions: the suspension of parking charges on Saturdays before Christmas, voluntary sector grant allocations 2022 to 23, and the Connect programme Invest to Save business case and pipeline of projects. Thank you. Moving on to page 4, we've got 2 decisions: the Association of South Essex Local Authorities and the Parks for Nature. Okay. Moving on to the final decision, waste transfer arrangements. Okay. Thank you, members. Item number 8 is the work plan, and the work plan hasn't been filled up as the review of the work of the committee will be commencing this month as part of the work that will be undertaken for the audit. And one of the areas that's going to be covered by the review will be how this committee approaches its work programme. If anyone's got any topics that they would like to suggest at this meeting, officers are happy to take note of that for discussion with the relevant officers to see where they might be best inserted into the work plan. Does anyone have any questions on the work plan or suggestions? Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing I would like us to look at, and I don't recall the Review Committee actually ever looking at it, is our litter collection policy. And I'm not talking about refuse, I'm talking about the litter from waste bins and around the area. I think we've all seen on social media that this is becoming quite a problem. And I think we need to look at the procedure that we have in place, whether it's effective. And also, I know quite a lot of waste bins were removed by the council. Whether that has had an effect on the problem we have, but to look at if our policy covers prevention as well as cure of litter. And the other thing that's very noticeably missing in the litter bins that we provide for the public use in public places is any element of recycling. And as this council is looking and proud of its recycling, I don't know if that's because it's not being covered in the policy at all. So I think this committee could do well to look at our policy and perhaps raise some questions and see if areas need to be looked at further by the portfolio holder.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Dray.
Thank you, Chairman. Some time ago, I understand a working group was set up to look at a policy as to how Rochester District Council can help residents in relation to issues with their management companies. I don't know if there was any conclusion in respect to that working group. Can I ask if there was indeed a conclusion? If not, can I suggest it goes back onto the work plan?
Yes, thanks. I don't know. Do you know?
I would need to take it back to the AD, the lead. Sorry, Councillor Mrs Mason.
I thought it was my hearing aids playing up for a minute.
Councillor Mrs Mason,
Thank
I can take it back to the Assistant Director and ask, yeah.
Councillor Dray will take that back. And,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I can probably elaborate on that for you.
please.
As the chairman of that working group, we asked officers to provide us with information that unfortunately wasn't forthcoming until for quite some time, about over a year I think. But we have now got that information, and the working group has convened and actually has a meeting on the 10th, so we will be meeting on the 10th. But unfortunately, because of the lack of information, we couldn't progress. We are now in a position to progress, hopefully. Does that answer your question, Councillor Dray?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, I'd still like it to be investigated further and, if necessary, put onto the work plan.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Wilkinson.
Chairman, one thing I just wanted to ask was, am I right in thinking, I think I am, that the carbon neutral working group is a working group in this committee? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I noticed that doesn't feature at all on the work plan. Is there going to be any updates at all? Because I haven't heard any updates from that working group for a little while, and I'm just not sure how we're going to get that. How does that report back into the review? Does it need to be on the work plan? Does it just report back in as and when?
We could make it an agenda
But it's
item.
not set up in the portfolio. it's
Standing
set up on the
agenda
review.
item, perhaps.
Oh, was it passed over?
As and when it meets, it will report back into this committee, Councillor Wilkinson.
Okay, so it's not been passed over to the portfolio holder for environment then?
I would have to actually get an update from the AD on that and update you outside the meeting.
Okay, Chairman, through you, if I may, is it possible to get an update? Because obviously it is an important subject which we voted on back in 2019, I think, from memory, and a lot of us feel, I think all of us actually feel very strongly about it, and for it not to feature on our work plan at all for the year is a little bit concerning, that's all. I'd just be keen to get sort of some idea as to how that's progressing. Thank you.
Yeah, we've noted and we'll take that forward. Thanks, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Foster.
If I may, I'll speak up now. I similar thought to Councillor Wilkinson about the emergency planning. Right, thank you. Yes, similar thoughts to Councillor Wilkinson. I wonder why emergency planning isn't included in the work plan.
Emergency planning, it reported in very recently to this committee, Councillor Foster. So, you know, there isn't a sort of, unless there's a particular focus, you know, that the committee wants. You know, it's difficult to include it on the work plan. Is there anything in particular that you would actually like the committee to focus on in terms of emergency planning, Liz?
I may come back to that. Thank you.
Any other members wish to comment on the work plan? That is the final agenda item, and so the meeting is closed at 20:53. Sorry, 19:53. Working on summertime.